You can't just sit there and say, oh, I feel bad about my self-esteem because everyone else is living a better life than me. There are tiers of people who use social media. So if you're someone who just comments and scrolls, doom scrollers, kind of wasting time for the full extent or pretty much most of the time they're on social media, then yeah, I can understand. Nobody forced you to interact with them. So if you don't want to interact with these people who are not adding value to your social media experience, then why don't you either remove them or social media, right? It's very controversial. People have a lot of opinions on it. Some people say it's bad, some people say it's good. But at the end of the day, it's one of the most powerful tools that we have. And we're not gonna sit here and blame the phone for our own decisions that we make in our lives. Right off the bat, there's been this shift in social media where we have the interest graph now over the social graph. For people who are not popular growing up, people who are not part of the in crowd, this really gives you a chance to shine and really gives you a chance to connect with people who actually have things in common with you. You know, people who are growing up and they've had other people around them who they already had things in common with. They had people around them who they got along with, they vibed with, you know. These people, they're pretty much fine with how things were with the social graph. But now we have the interest graph. Now, just because they have all these followers doesn't mean that they're gonna get the same engagement, because it's really about like, what does that individual actually enjoy? And it's such a cool equalizer that really levels the playing field in social media. And so a lot of people who felt scared to put things out because they weren't known, they can suddenly become known. And that's, for one, is just something that's super, super wild about what's changed in social media. A lot of people complain that social media is somehow bad, somehow responsible for all their problems when it comes to the digital age. People who made social media, they're very smart. They've paid attention to a lot of details about human psychology. And yes, they do make it addicting. They do make it, you know, prey on human habits. But nobody's forcing you to use it. So if you want to say that social media is so bad and that it's ruining your life, whatever the case, nobody's forcing you to use it. So how about you just stop using it then? But if you're going to keep using it, like most people who complain about it do, then you have to change how you use it to make it beneficial to your life. And that looks different for every single person because everyone has their own lifestyle, things that they do and don't do. But it's about that accountability. We're not going to sit here and blame this tool, which is ultimately neutral, and somehow call it the scapegoat for problems that are really self-inflicted. Now, there are tiers of people who use social media. So if you're someone who just comments and scrolls, doom scrollers, kind of wasting time for the full extent or pretty much most of the time they're on social media, then yeah, I can understand. Social media is going to feel like it's making you feel like trash. It's damaging your life. It really does negatively impact your psychology in that way. And not that it doesn't if you're the person that actually shows themselves, but if you're in that tier of people who actually put themselves out there to be perceived, to be critiqued, really just to be witnessed, like, social media is going to feel more like real life to you because you're actually having the courage to do that. You're putting out pictures maybe, but pictures are kind of You're putting out videos like on YouTube where you're talking, like that right there. I mean, that's as close as you can really get at this point in time to making social media feel like real life. So you're putting out your content and then you're being perceived by so many more people than you otherwise would have been able to. Like, imagine you're trying to meet someone new and you have like a list of maybe 50 people in your town. So you go to every single one of those people and you say, hi, my name is whatever it is. I enjoy doing XYZ hobby. Now, think about posting a video where you're actually demonstrating and showing yourself doing what you do in life. People get to feel your vibe. People get to understand who you are at such a large scale that it's almost incomprehensible. And that just goes to show the power of social media. People can get you a lot quicker when you're showing it versus just speaking about it. And when you're just speaking about it to someone in person, they can't really see what you already know to be true because you're just meeting them for the first time and just talking about it. They don't have anything else to go off of. Versus on social media, you have a whole collection of things. You have a whole plethora of content. People can understand, okay, that's what that person does. I can now decide whether or not I like them, basically. That right there is a huge benefit to social media that you otherwise wouldn't have had, not just in the past, but even now, if you're someone who doesn't actually post and you're just hiding behind like a blank profile. And just to go back to that, a lot of people who hide behind these blank profiles and, you know, the rage bait commenters and all of that, they are the people who they have whatever they have inside that leads them to do that. I can definitely understand that because there is so much pain going on in the world. And this pain comes out in different ways in people. And when you have to resort to commenting things to kind of get that engagement, especially in the negative sense, that definitely is just not an experience that is desirable for someone who wants to live a positive life. But if you're someone who wants social media to be beneficial, why don't you make it feel like the real world? Because when social media was in its infancy, its early days, it was a way to build better bonds with people in real life. People that you knew in real life, you get to know them better, have more conversations outside of that face to face. Because let's be honest, um, a lot of times you just might not see a person very often, especially after getting through school. Now, when you're in school and you have people around you and you have a lot of things to be involved in, people might add you on social media. I didn't have this happen to me because I wasn't part of the in crowd growing up, but I know that it happens, and then you might get invited to different, events and stuff, and then people would post about them online. So you have a party on Saturday or like a school dance, and then the next week people are posting online about what happened at the event and whatever. You guys are all, just part of that in group, and you're just, you're just doing that. But then at a certain point, as you get older, you begin to wonder how many of these people are actually my real friends, yada, yada, yada. And then you get into this whole thing where it's like, I'm scared of posting on social media because these people might not view me as who I now think that I am. These people from my past, they just don't understand me anymore, and all this. And I just see this cycle happening because of all the people that I've talked to. And a lot of them have had to wrestle with it. And it's really interesting to see. As someone who didn't really use social media, at least on my personal social media account, so like way after, I didn't have this issue because I wasn't really part of any group. What I did growing up was mostly making videos for my animation channel that I had. And so I would make my videos, I would discuss with other people online who were doing the similar types of videos I was doing. And we would talk about, ideas, talk about really going deep into our niche hobby of making videos. So talking about how do we make a series that looks entertaining and really engages an audience? And then we discuss things about some of the professional animators, some of the professional production companies. What are the shows that they put out? What do we like about the shows? How can we learn to make someone's hand move in a certain way? These kind of really niche things that you really couldn't just talk about in school with someone, because like it just, unless you're really into that, it just wasn't an everyday thing to do. Of course, nowadays things have changed because it's kind of becoming more and more of a thing just to be on social media and putting out content for the masses. But just saying that, like, that was kind of the extent to which I use social media, because as far as people in real life, I didn't get invited to places. I didn't spend weekends doing much besides, just doing my animation by myself. Then over time, I began to realize, oh, well, now with social media, we have the interest graph. So even if I wasn't popular in school, I wasn't well known, well liked, I can still put out videos. And, the playing field is now even. So I have the same chance of getting engagement, getting to really interact with people who are on the same wavelength as me, as someone who is the most popular person in my school. Because social media now, we're presenting ourselves to the world, not just to our small local town. That's just crazy to me. That's really the scale that social media has, that, to me, I think that's one of the best things. Because those of us, and you know who you are. If you're watching this and you're someone who's like that, you know what I mean. If you're not, then I guess good for you. But it really does do something within where it's like, okay, now like I have a chance too. It's like someone can actually care about me, the person who got overlooked, me, the person who was never part of anything, the person who was just that side character in the background. I can now have a way to present myself and be received and perceived by people who get where I'm coming from. I have the chance to do that. That's crazy. It's a really powerful thing that social media can be if you decide to do that. If you want to just doom scroll and rage bait and comment all day, then yes, social media is going to make you feel bad. But at the end of the day, social media is just a tool. So it's not in that positive or in that negative right out the box. It's more about how do you decide to use it. That's going to determine how you feel about it. Nobody wants to spend their whole entire social life interacting with people through a screen, on a phone, on a computer. If you are the person who truly wants to make social media not just feel like real life, but actually be taken into real life and just be part of your overall life, where things are real and things are tangible, then meet people in person. If time allows, if distance allows, all these different factors go into making that happen. Don't just be someone who is comfortable being online. Be someone who makes things happen in person. Because especially these days where a lot of Gen Z and Gen Alpha just don't want to hang out in person anymore, for whatever reason, like, be that person who encourages others to do that. If you want social media to feel like it's real, if you want social media to not be something that detracts from real life, but actually adds to it. You can't just sit there and say, oh, I feel bad about my self-esteem because everyone else is living a better life than me. At some point, you have to recognize social media is about what you make of it, what you decide you want it to be. Take some accountability. Don't just get comfortable blaming it. Instead, how about you make it something positive for yourself? Your perception is the only thing that has a chance to change. Social media is not going anywhere. We're not going back to the world before social media, so you might as well find a way to make it a positive experience for yourself, or not. I don't know about you, but if I have two categories of people, one category is people that I know in real life. I see them in my local town. I kind of know, what kind of general life experience they're living. And then I have influencers online who I don't know in real life. Well, if I'm seeing someone flex Personally, I'd rather see the influencer flex because I know that person is living a life that I know nothing about versus someone who's in my hometown. I know that they're doing one thing, but on social media, they're posting another. People really complain about this person in my local town is flexing, and you start to complain and feel a certain type of way about them flexing. Well, hey, nobody forced you to interact with them. So if you don't want to interact with these people who are not adding value to your social media experience, then why don't you either remove them, or how about you just interact with them in person and not on social media? Like, no, but you don't have to merge the two. There's not this automatic rule where you meet someone in person and you automatically just have to add them on social media. And I feel like a lot of people do that and then run into this problem later on where they kind of have this mental clash between what they want to post versus what their audience wants. And this is really awkward. If I'm seeing an influencer flex, I mean, I know that they're influencers, so I already categorize them and view them as such. I might get some inspiration from one aspect of what they posted. Even if it makes you feel a certain kind of way, I can understand, yes, you know what, that's an influencer. That's just what they do. There's a divide between the two. So personally, what I enjoy doing is making sure that people who I actually know in real life, we're interacting in real life. We don't need to be on social media having interaction in addition to that when we're already having so much in real life. Or, we can just text. That's an option too. But that's that. Social media is ultimately an experience that is crafted by you, nobody else. So if you want to make social media more positive, then you need to look at yourself and decide what do you want to do to make that happen. You're not going to blame the phone. It's not the phone's fault. It's never been the phone, okay? It's you.